afternoon. I'm Dave Summers, Chair of the Sound Transit, and I want to thank you for being here today. Last November, voters gave Sound Transit the responsibility of a very large expansion of our region's high-capacity transit network. Since then, we've hit the ground running, organizing ourselves, and developing the blueprint and timetable for the hard work ahead. Today, we're pushing the go button on this massive infrastructure program. The plans we're rolling out today will enable one of the most ambitious transit expansions this country has ever seen. Getting the job in front of us done requires taking our game to the next level. So why are we here? First, I want to emphasize why we're here today. It's not about the steel or concrete. It's about the people of our region who each passing year find it harder and harder to move around. Within the last 5 years, the amount of congestion delayed people in our region experience has virtually doubled. Congestion has profound consequences for people's daily lives. It affects whether a mom or dad can have dinner with the kids or be in the middle and dad has to run out to make an audience at a school play on time. It affects where people can realistically live and work. For people who are struggling economically, lack of access to quality transportation represents one of the biggest barriers to getting ahead. In the coming years, Sound Transit will make good on the public's mandate to build the true regional transit system that people wish we were already riding. Like other Snohomish County residents, I am eager to move forward with the expansion of light rail northward. The plan we are launching today includes finishing the light rail extension to Linwood in 2023, and from there extending 16 miles north to Painfield Industrial Center and downtown Everett. Other communities in Sound Transit District are equally excited about the light rail extensions and other projects headed in their directions. But one of the most thrilling aspects of this massive infrastructure program is that there is much more than the sum of the parts. Regionally, this plan will keep not only commuters, but our economy moving. Every resident of our district will benefit from this plan, whether or not they personally ride the trains or buses. Not only does every transit rider represent someone who won't add to the rising congestion, the system will also help our region retain and attract high-quality jobs. Our 116-mile regional light rail system will be more than 5 times larger than that we have now. It puts us on a par with rail systems in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. As we unveil this plan today, there's a sense of urgency to get going because the need is overwhelming. We're all too familiar with reality. Traffic congestion is bad and getting worse. It's imperative for the economic health of the region that we build more congestion-free options for people to get from work and home and back again. Last year, we added roughly 1,000 new residents to our region every week. By 2040, the population in our central Puget Sound cities and neighborhoods is estimated to grow by 1 million new residents. We also expect to have a lot more jobs. In Snohomish County in the next 20 years, we expect another 200,000 residents. The population of Everett will increase by 63% and jobs by 82%. Tacoma's population will increase by 64% and jobs by 89%. Bellevue's population will increase by 32% and jobs 61%. Finally, Seattle's population will grow by 29% with jobs up 49%. Building these investments will put thousands of people to work with good family wage jobs. Once the investments are complete, workers will have new reliable ways of getting to work and back home. That is the end result of the plan that we're embarking on today. And it's the inspiration for the actions we are taking, starting today, to get these projects done and done efficiently. Since before Sound Transit 3 passed, we have been looking very closely at what it will take to succeed in making this plan a reality. Peter has led efforts to compare notes with industry peers, and the staff at Sound Transit have worked hard to identify steps to rise to the challenge. I commend Sound Transit staff for embracing the internal improvements that are part of this plan. There are many other changes that can't be carried out by Sound Transit alone. I want to emphasize that we will be looking for jurisdictions and stakeholders around the region to do their part in the intensified collaboration that is needed to be successful. Last year, Snohomish County and the cities of Everett and Linwood formally acted to streamline the process of working with Sound Transit to get light rail to our residents. Going forward, I hope to see other jurisdictions taking the same kinds of actions to facilitate giving our residents the transit options they need to thrive. By working closely, we will transform these projects from aspirations to actual trains and buses that carry people past the rising congestion. So now I want to introduce Peter Rogoff, the CEO of Sound Transit, who, as I mentioned, has been working very closely with staff and the regional partners for the implementation plan that we're rolling out today. And I know Peter is very passionate about building the best high-quality transit system in the nation, and I'm very fortunate to be working with Peter as a leader. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave. You know, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, our region did not invest enough in public transit options. And during that period, leading all the way up to the current day, congestion on our roads has continued to deteriorate. In fact, it's more than doubled in just the last 5 years. What that means is not just automobile drivers, but even our bus riders are seeing deteriorating performance in their on-time arrivals and the amount of time they have to lay aside just to get from home to work to their stops on a given day. And that, more than any other reason, is why the voters in this region adopted a $54 billion ballot measure to really give themselves a congestion-free option throughout the region. It's an ambitious ballot measure, $54 billion in projects, and Sound Transit is going to deliver it. We're going to continue our record of delivering it on time and on budget. But in order to deliver a program of this scope, we need to implement real programmatic change, both change internal to Sound Transit and encourage change external to Sound Transit. I'm going to point out just some of the central points of the plan that we are releasing today. It has been a long time in the making. We started certain task forces internally here at Sound Transit to come up with some of these reforms, frankly, before the ballot measure even was adopted, because we knew that we could up our game. This system expansion plan is really a blueprint to make these project schedules that you see right here a reality. Last year was an all-consuming year for Sound Transit, and we delivered, importantly, 3 new light rail stops: Angle Lake, Capitol Hill, and Husky Stadium. Just with those 3 stops, light rail ridership rose well into the high 70%, depending on when you count it, as high as 82% growth in a single year. But what you see here with these project schedules is that we will be expanding north, south, east, and west all at the same time. We are taking the entire program to an entirely new scale. And as Chair Summers pointed out, that's going to involve considerably more cooperation and collaboration. We're going to need to have a more cooperative, side-by-side relationship working with the municipalities in which we're going to build, and a more collaborative relationship with the local elected leaders in each of those municipalities, so that they are as invested as the voters and as invested as Sound Transit in delivering the project on time. We can do it, and we have examples around the region where municipalities are taking great steps to move us forward more quickly, because we all know collectively that the people of the region want these projects more quickly. We went through a process, you may remember, when the Sound Transit Plan came out, and we put out a draft plan in March of last year, and the thing that these board members and others heard repeatedly is they wanted to deliver those projects more quickly. And as a result, and I'll give some examples in the boardroom presentation later, we sped up our assumed delivery times of those projects. But in order to deliver them on that time, we can't continue to do business the way we've been doing it now. So among the things that we'll be doing internally in Sound Transit is developing a much more collaborative approach between all our different lines of business to get the project done quickly. Many people may not know this, but the way Sound Transit is spread out over 5 buildings in this area. And it just so happens that the people who plan the projects are in a building over there. The people who design and engineer the projects are in a building over there. And the people who actually operate the projects are on the second floor of this building. Do they collaborate now? Certainly. Can they collaborate more and better? Absolutely. And we will be co-locating project teams to bring everyone to the table so all considerations can be on the table when we plan, design, and operate a project. And this is the way we're going to save time, by not having decisions revisited, and revisited again as the project is handed from one building to another building to another building. That's just kind of the inside baseball about how we're going to do things here at Sound Transit. But in terms of working with our partners, the cities, the counties, other transit agencies like King County Metro, Pierce Transit, Community Transit, SDOT, we are going to be able to partner with them in a much clearer way by identifying goals earlier, identifying the project we're going to build earlier, the alignment, the station locations. We believe that we could take a considerable amount of time off of the environmental process, off of the planning process, to give the voters of this region what they voted for, and that is high-capacity transit as soon as we can get it to them. So with that, I will hand it back to Dave.
Thank you, Peter. And now I'd like to introduce our Vice Chair, Marilyn Strickland, Mayor of the City of Tacoma.
Thank you, Chair Summers. Getting this plan done is going to require a lot of cooperation from all the municipalities and organizations who will have a hand in this. But make no mistake, when we were planning Sound Transit 3 before it went to the voters, here are a few things we heard loudly and clearly. They wanted more service, and they wanted it more quickly. That's a fact. When I drove up to Seattle this morning to go to a 10 o'clock meeting, I was sitting on Interstate 5 behind freight traffic and in gridlock, even around the Tacoma Dome, and in many points between here and Seattle. If we're going to accommodate a growing region, we know that we have to build out a regional transportation system. At our Puget Sound Regional Council meeting this morning, we found out that Sound Transit is the fastest growing transit agency in the United States. We have the highest growing ridership in the country, period. And what that means is that we know that more people are moving here. We're planning for a lot of population growth, and we have to make sure that we have a transit system that accommodates the growth, that allows us to have economic security for as many people as possible, that allows us to build equitable communities, that allows us to move freight so that we're not having to compete with cars and freight on the highways, and also to make sure that we're keeping our environment as clean as possible. If you're a municipality who's anticipating getting light rail or more sounder service, we encourage you to start planning now to think about the things that you can do. Your public works departments, your utilities, your engineers. Now's the time to start planning. And although some of these projects won't be delivered for what may feel like an eternity to some folks, we are delivering these as quickly as possible. As our CEO, Peter Rogoff, just mentioned, we are working internally to make ourselves more efficient. But it's also incumbent upon every municipality to do the same as well, so that when we all come together, we can deliver these projects on time and on budget. Global regions that are competitive have transportation systems that are robust and efficient. I was recently in China, and I was blown away at the efficiency of public transit in that country. In the United States, it's time for us to catch up as well. We're one of the most competitive regions in the entire world, and having better transit will improve the quality of life for all people, make our environment more clean, and provide economic opportunity for as many people as possible. Thank you.
And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Vice Chair John Marchioni, the Mayor of the City of Redmond.
Well, good afternoon. This plan is a bold plan, 62 miles of light rail being implemented over the next 25 plus years. And people say, why does it take so long? Someone said, I'm going to vote against it because it takes so long. I said, well, if you vote against it, you will make it take a longer time. Voting no doesn't help us. Residents want relief from congestion. PSRC released this morning that in 2015, congestion grew by over 30%. And then the following year, it grew another 15% on top of that. The freeways are continually plugged, and our residents want alternatives to the congestion. Major employers are seeing this as not a windfall, but an asset, where their employees can get to work more efficiently. Microsoft had to provide its own bus service because our transportation system is not adequate enough in the Puget Sound area. But now you can get, or in 2024, you can get from Redmond to the airport on light rail. Microsoft alone says they have 1,000 people each day going through SeaTac Airport. So let's say 500 each way. That's a large number of trips that could be serviced with light rail. Our major employers that are locating near centers have already begun. We have the Spring District in Bellevue. Weyerhaeuser's moved to downtown Seattle. And Microsoft has a far-reaching employee network that can go from Linwood to Redmond, or Tacoma to Redmond, or Seattle. It's going to make people able to choose where they want to live and still get to work. The marriage of jobs and housing is important. But these stations, besides creating, or the system, besides creating mobility, creates a system of investments. These investments give certainty. So with the certainty that stations are being built, employers and housing contractors know they can build something near a station and that station's going to come. Bus lines can change. Light rail is forever, I hope. And it provides the predictability so the private investment in our region is certain that they're going to be able to get their employees to and from work. In Redmond, we're fortunate enough that our last piece from Overlake Center to downtown Redmond is going to be completed in 2024. How come we get to go to downtown Redmond so fast? Well, in 2004, we picked our route. We've known our route for 13 years. We're ready for Sound Transit too. So we were able to get half of that. But by planning and then working through permitting, what we did to speed up permitting is to zone our route for light rail. That's a big advantage instead of using conditional use permits, which have all kinds of negotiations surrounding them. So by planning up front, we're able to deliver this project as soon as the construction money was available. On average, a project takes 15 years to be built, but about 9 of those are permitting and design. Local jurisdictions can help speed that up by organizing their permitting system and working with Sound Transit up front to take those 9 years and make them less so we can get to the construction part, which is what everyone wants to see. With that, I'll turn it back to Executive Summers.
That's our formal comments. We do have a few minutes before our board meeting for questions.
Can you stipulate, for example, what sort of collaboration you might be asking the city of Seattle for?
Well, I think in general, just as we did in Snohomish County with the city of Everett and city of Linwood, to make sure that the permitting process is streamlined, that the permitting offices are streamlined and efficient, and we look for every opportunity to move the project forward in a timely manner. So it's really a large issue of permitting. There's rights-of-way issues in the city of Seattle. I don't know, Peter, would you like to address Seattle particularly more?
Well, I've met with Mayor Murray on this, and we are going to be working to get a single point of contact really for all Sound Transit business through the city to help coordinate it through different city departments. You know, we are already getting started. Just last week, we put out a request for qualifications, really got the starting gun going on West Seattle to Ballard. That's a very lengthy project, a very complicated project, and one in which we're going to try and do a single environmental document for the whole alignment from West Seattle all the way up to Ballard. We'll have other projects that we'll be moving out on this year in Snohomish County and Pierce County on the east side. But this is something where, by early coordination, we could identify where we have maybe some duplication in processes and get rid of them well in advance. And that's what we'll be working with Seattle and other municipalities on.
I think it's significant that sitting here at this press conference today is that you don't see a Seattle-centric group of leaders. You have the Snohomish County executive, you have the mayor of Redmond, and then myself, the mayor of Tacoma. And there have been assertions in the past that Sound Transit was only a Seattle-centric transportation system. But you see here that those of us who don't even live in Seattle have a major stake in this. In Tacoma, for example, we're going to improve Sounder service, the hardworking commuter rail. And we'll have additional stops and trains running in Lakewood, South Tacoma, Tacoma Dome, Puyallup, Sumner, Auburn. And those are significant to the South Puget Sound. And to be honest with you, Those are some of the communities that did not even vote for Sound Transit 3. But regardless of how you voted, you will benefit from having better regional transportation.
Any indication if there's an infusion of federal cash that we can accelerate any more streamlining here?
Well, precisely what is going to come out of the administration's new infrastructure plan is unknown. You could be sure that Sound Transit has been very entrepreneurial when it comes to accessing federal programs in the past. We are hoping and expecting that federal commitments we already have for Linwood and Federal Way will hopefully come through. And, you know, we can't get to Tacoma until we get to Federal Way, but there's opportunities out there, and we're going to be looking over any infrastructure proposal, whether it comes out of Congress or comes out of the new administration, to see how we can capitalize.
On kind of the opposite way, has there been any initial planning as to what this schedule might look like if you have less money than anticipated, either from Washington DC or from Olympia?
No, you know, it's a 25-year plan. You know, how much money we get from Olympia and Washington DC certainly matters. You know, tell me what interest rates are going to be over the next 25 years, and I can tell you how that might influence this plan, but we don't know. What we do every year is we do a new financial snapshot at the beginning of the year. We bring it to the board and tell us what we can advance on and what we can speed up and what we can slow down, and we'll be doing the same thing this coming fall.
Got time for one more question. All right, well, thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to the coming years and the implementation of Sound Transit 3.
Thank you.